Make sure it works. There we go. There we go. What is up? What is up, Facebook Live? Let me just make sure that we're live. Let me go check real quick the interweb. Sorry for the delay. Unfortunately, like Corey said, I have that Teddy Riley level. I say my laptop. He says Wi-Fi. So I
Yeah.
just want to make sure that we are good to go. Make sure that we are live. We are live. We are live. Yep, we are good to go. All right, cool, cool. What's up, guys? So I'm really excited today. Because we're going to be talking about the importance of leading through conflict resolution. I don't know if you guys are privy to what's going on with Amazon, but right now there are strikes, and there are some key issues and problems that a lot of business owners, leaders that we can learn from this process of leading through conflict that I really want to talk about. So me and Corey are on here today, and we're going to talk about, and yes, we have Tyrus on here too. So we really want to talk about the importance of leading through conflict, how to address those conflicts effectively, and ensuring that we also have employee engagement, making sure that's still intact during this process. And I think that this season that Amazon is going through, I mean, everybody uses Amazon just about. I mean, they have really just changed the game in what they do. However, who would have known in the background their employees, their team members feel like they aren't cared for? And I think it's a really important conversation because a lot of business owners, a lot of leaders out there, you guys might run into the same issue. So, we wanted to take the opportunity today to really talk about how to be effective, how to deal with conflict resolution, communication, and transparency. So let's get into it. So, if you guys don't really know what's going on right now, what the current issue is, Amazon workers from across the U.S. called in sick to demand a better safety standard. So they came together as a collective and said, you know what, we're going to come together and we're going to have the strike because we want to make sure that the safety standards are, up to par. Because what's happening is across 100 warehouses, there have been more than 75 Amazon employees who have tested positive for COVID-19, but a lot of people are still showing up and having to work. And remember, just as we have seen, the symptoms for COVID-19, they might not show up right away. It might take time for you to even realize that you're sick. So they feel like there's a lack of transparency, and safety protocols aren't up to par. So what they're currently asking for, or their current concerns are, hey, the only people that are getting paid sick leave are only those who test positive or have to be quarantined due to exposure. There's mandatory overtime. And in addition to that, the facilities are becoming overcrowded. They actually have quotas because these are in the warehouses. So they have quotas that they have to meet. So now they're having to rush their pace. There's a lack of hygiene because, hey, if you have quotas, they're not washing their hands as often as they should. They're using the same mask for a long time period. And also one Queens, New York, there's a warehouse that has had over 50 plus positive cases. So from that experience, they're feeling like there's a lack of transparency. And what they're asking for is specifically for them to close the warehouses, specifically for those that have positive cases, including allowing testing to happen. While the warehouses are closed, they're asking for, hey, can we get paid time off during that time while we figure out what's going on and see if people do become positive. Also, they're asking for sanitizing to happen. Amazon is saying they're already sanitizing processes that are happening, but the warehouse the warehouse team members don't feel like it's as effective. And then also they want more cleaning supplies, improved safety measures, and expanded health benefits, reduction of work pace. Because again, because they're having to work at a high pace, they feel like they want to hit those quotas. Those quotas are important. So they're not washing their hands as frequently. They're wearing their masks for a longer time. So they want that reduction of work pace and they want greater transparency. So what me and Corey are going to talk about the importance of how leaders need to be effective in resolving conflict and using this as a basis, as a way we can really look at a current example and being able to get past these issues of conflict. So we're going to talk about, the importance of building relationships, the importance of engagement, conflict resolution, and communication. So Corey, how, like from your perspective of what you've learned about this Amazon issue, what's your perspective about what you have heard so far about it?
Yeah, well, I mean, first and foremost, it really comes down to the fact that your employees are telling you that they're not being heard almost. And you have to be able to shift from the profits to putting people over profit. And so everything that I'm reading is saying like, hey, we just, and it's almost to a simple degree that they're saying, I just want the right material, right? I'm using the same mask day over day. I just want the right material. I want cleaning supplies, right? We're using the same brooms and mops and machinery that everybody else is touching, and we can't clean it, or we can't properly sanitize it or whatnot. And so everything that I've been reading is like the employee is not asking for something so far fetched, right? Amazon had opened themselves up to doing like this unpaid leave if you needed to get out the building or whatnot. But the people who are actually speaking out aren't even necessarily saying, I just don't want to come to work. Because there's a lot of people who could use this time to be like, yeah, I ain't trying to get up in the morning and come to work. But they're not even saying that. What they're saying is, I just want to be supported and I want to be put in a situation to where I know that you're understanding my health and you're understanding my safety in the job frame. So you have, and I can't remember the statistic or whatnot, but it's something like 50, 75 people that were actually diagnosed with coronavirus inside of the facilities. I think it's like 100 or 130 facilities across the nation. Um, and you're having these associates just say, look, I get it. I'm here. I've got to go to work. I just want to be supported. Give me the right supplies to where I can do my job. So it seems like from the employee standpoint, they're just saying, I'm here for it. Just give me what I need.
Exactly, and I think that's important. I mean, we want to make sure that these are the people, like I always say, these are the people that are pushing our mission and our vision. They're pushing, like Amazon again. They have literally changed the game. They have done some amazing things, and now they've been able to create, so much revenue that someone like Jeff Bezos is, like maybe one of the richest men out there. I forget the number, but I think he is like one of the richest men out there. So they've been able to push your mission and vision, and he would not have been able. And this is just not only on Jeff Bezos, because we have to look at those specific people that have been placed in those leadership roles at each one of those warehouses. But ultimately, for him to get to that point, there were layers, and there are people, and there are these team members that are getting him to that level. So we have to make sure that we're taking care of those individuals and asking them specifically what their needs are. Not only that, if you look at some background, this isn't the first time that Amazon has had strikes or they've had these issues. And again, not to pick on Amazon, but I think one of the biggest things that we have to look at as leaders are patterns. Is this a pattern? Because now, if it's repetitive, that means, was the issue ever addressed in the first place? So, Corey, can you tell me an example of, or maybe, I don't know if you have an example, if you think about it, what do you think that what could have prevented this initially in the forefront so this wasn't a repeated issue in the future?
Yeah, and I think it comes down to, and I do want to give a shout out to Amazon for this before I even say this. Amazon clearly has built a culture because of their employees saying, um, I just want the right material. I want the right things to be able to go to work. So clearly they've built some type of culture where they say, you know what, I'm in it. Like I'm ready to go to work. I just need the right stuff to be able to go to work. So shout out to them for that. And I don't want to, we turn this into like a what Amazon's not doing right session. But when you think about what they could have done in this situation was, we knew that this situation was going to blow up bigger than what it originally was, right? And people were getting diagnosed, and people were, oh, this person caught it, and all of a sudden it's the 6 feet back, and now we're talking about mandatory wear your mask stuff. So we knew as a company, not myself, I don't work for them obviously, but they knew as a company that this is coming down the pipeline. How do you start being transparent with your associates and your employees from the leadership state on down? How do you become transparent in that communication? So we know, hey, y'all are eventually going to be worried about how how do you deal with being in a warehouse full of people? My people are going to have to touch all of these items, right? And even if you're not grabbing that particular item to pull it for an order, maybe I'm up on a forklift and I'm just grabbing on because I just want to be safe. Maybe I'm like, hey, this is the 119B, but I need 119A, or I'll pick this up, but I got to put that back down. So you know the gist of your employees' jobs and what they're going to have to go through. So how to be transparent and start coming down the pipeline and say, we know y'all touch a whole lot of stuff during the day. We know that y'all are going to be here. We know that you're in it, and use it. And in the framework that I say is it's engage, excite, and empower your associates, right? So we have some empowerment that we're being showed where the associates are saying we want to come to work, we want to be at work, right? Because if that's the case, if we offered everybody unpaid leave, there would be no Amazon right now. So clearly they are showing we want to be here, but how do you engage and excite them in it? So we've lost the excitement because I don't have the stuff that I need to be able to work. Now I'm fearful for my life, right? For my family's life. You have people out here who are sleeping in cars and can't see their family. So how do we become transparent in that case to come down and say, you know what? And you talked about Jeff Bezos, for example, right? At the end of the day, he doesn't necessarily get a pass because you're worth $115 billion, right? So if you are worth that much, and this is your, and to every entrepreneur, to every business owner, that's still your baby. Like that's the thing that you grew and you saw that tree sprout up from the ground, and that is your thing. So there are certain times where you have to then step in and say, let me get a pulse on what my leadership team is doing. Let me get a pulse on what my upper management is doing. And then if I need to then step in and say, this is what we need to do, I'll just highlight one specific situation. The part-time employees don't get offered health care benefits. Something as simple as saying we're going to extend those benefits to my part-time people, and in the case, hey, keep showing up to work, keep doing what you do, you're killing it. I'm giving you, typically you wouldn't get it, but I'm giving it to you just in case you start to feel any symptoms. I don't want your family to have to worry about paying some exorbitant bill, because we know medical bills nowadays are like through the roof. I don't want you to worry about having to pay this giant bill. And so that's when the message from the top starts coming down with not only just the talk, but now the action. Hey, they're trying to do something to keep me safe. They're trying at least to give me the right equipment. And so we've already built the culture, but let the action start to speak for what exactly we're trying to do here. And then you keep showing up to work. And so those are kind of some situations that I could think about, even with me reading, of how can you nip this in the bud. For example, you built the culture, let some action start to step in from that, right? So I talk about people over profit, right? So people over process too. So you have a process in your building. The the part-time people don't, have the healthcare benefits. Maybe there's X amount of sanitation gear inside of it, whatnot. And our process is to order X amount of sanitation, goods or whatever. Our process is to not offer part-time people this, right? But when do you step in and say my people matter more? And even if we take a loss, in this quarter, in this year, what will that do for your brand? What will it, to say that Amazon stood by, or whatever company it is stood by their employee in that time versus worrying about what the sales look like?
Yes, that's so oh, I was muted. But no, that's so good. That is so true. Some of the signs, I mean, it was interesting looking at the pictures and the images for the signs of people who were protesting. One of them said, money come and go, but health is irreplaceable.
Mm-hmm.
Hashtag shut down. This other one says, treat your workers like your customers. Hashtag stop the spread, stay home. And then
Mm-hmm.
a jailing camp said, we are calling out because Amazon is putting its revenue above our safety. And
Yep.
again, the unfortunate thing is, it's interesting how say this was just only one warehouse. It's important to realize how one experience and one breakdown in your many warehouses or in your business can affect an
Mm-hmm.
entire company. Because this isn't. There are certain warehouses that were highlighted, like in Chicago and New York. There were actually even overseas. There are a couple other warehouses overseas that were affected, but not every warehouse or I mean, even with the strikes, not every single person that worked in the Amazon warehouses globally, nationally, they didn't all have a strike. But however,
Mm-hmm.
look at how one warehouses, two or three, can affect and break down an entire organization or make it look a certain way. I'm pretty sure when Jeff Bezos created this was not his vision. Again, he might be pushing down, hey guys, I need you guys to do this, I need you guys to do that. And as leaders, we delegate and we put people in positions hoping that
Mm-hmm.
they're going to do their part. Because again, as you move up and progress, you might not necessarily touch everyone. You might not, but
Mm-hmm.
again, it's the importance to also make sure that you're putting the right people in place, because just one breakdown can affect how an entire organization
Mm-hmm.
looks. I talk about that a lot of times. For a lot of you guys out there, I'm in the United States Air Force. I've been in since 2003. And I've talked to people who have separate and they use the term the Air Force this, the Air Force that. And I'm like, well, my experiences in the Air Force has been amazing. But again, they had that one breakdown with their leadership, that one
Hmm.
breakdown, that one experience with that location. And now they're speaking about the Air Force in total when it
Hmm.
was just an interaction with someone in their leadership team. Because remember, people don't quit their organizations. A lot of time they're quitting their leaders. They don't have the right supervisors in place. They don't have people that are engaging with them and they're supporting with them. And now, because of that one breakdown, now they're saying, well, this entire organization, people are using Amazon as a whole. But truly, I'm still getting my Amazon orders. I'm still getting stuff, coming
Hmm.
to me. I actually had an order that came sooner than it was expected. So truly, it might not be the entire organization, but there might be a breakdown in a few locations. So Corey, let's talk about the importance of relationship and building those relationships. That's one of the first things that I want you guys and you leaders to really be thinking about. How can you ensure that you're building effective relationships and good relationships with your team? So let's talk about that. What is your perspective about relationships and team building where you have that connectivity, you have that trust, so this does not happen in the future?
Yeah, and now and so it's so pivotal right now to build that relationship with your team. Or let me rephrase this. It's pivotal to take it even a step further than that, right? And so like my team that I have, we call ourselves the Corona Crew. And so we were talking about buying t-shirts and putting numbers on the back like this is like a baseball jersey or something like that because we know we're gonna get through it and we want to be like, you know what, we can wear our Corona Crew shirts because we know we made it through coronavirus together. We made it through COVID-19 together, right? And so you can actually take your team as a leader even as higher in as far as the buy-in, the connection with people, the greatest leaders in the world will make you want to act. And so you think about the Martin Luther Kings, the Gandhis, the even old, you talking about military, old warlords and whatnot back in the day, right? People bought into what they did, even in the midst of adversity. And so if we're going into battle, what greater adversity than I'm going to potentially lose my life here? So how do you create the relationship higher than what it is, right? So again, engage, excite, and empower. When we're talking about Amazon right now, they have the empowerment because or I should say, yeah, they have the empowerment because the people are saying, I want to come to work. We have the engagement because the people are saying, hey, I'm not trying to miss days. And so I'm here trying to do it. But they're no longer, well, they're losing the engagement, I should say, they're losing the excitement because now I'm no longer excited to come to work to do my job. I'm no longer engaged because I know you don't care for me. But what are some of the ways that we can do this, right? So as upper management, as the top tier leaders in it, how do we I can't maybe touch you like you said, I can't interact with you, but how do I send a message down low that says I got you, right? And so it's sometimes that it's just the slightest things that maybe there was a care package sent in, or maybe there was, some extra gloves, or maybe you, and this is something I read from you the other day. Maybe you just say, hey, you know what? We'll give y'all. I just need y'all work half a day today, and I want you to go home and I want you to spend time with your families right now because I understand what it's like. And maybe you don't, but the message that you're sending is I understand with you. But ultimately, this is the greatest time to build a relationship with your team because we're in the thick of it together. And if we ride together, we're not literally dying, but we die together, right? I don't want anybody out there to die, but we're dying together, which means I'm going through the struggle with you. I'm exposing myself to it. I empathize with where you're coming from because there are things that you're doing, and I know your job function may be on the front lines for versus myself where I'm trying to oversee the entire operation. But how do I get into the thick of it with you? How do I place myself in that situation? Maybe, and not to say that you should expose yourself to anything. Maybe you should just, stand in that warehouse with your associates. Stand on the front line with your team and be like, you know what, I'm here in it with you. I can't stress enough how the greatest leaders, in the midst of adversity, they rally their team and say, you know what, this is what we're doing. Like we're in it together. And the employees, the team members, I hate that word employees, but the team members, they will say, that's my guy, that's my girl. Like that is my person, and they stood by me in this situation. And you can even take a situation where you have absolutely no control over it as a leader, and you're just taking directives, and they're like, this is what you're going to do. And the simple fact that you empathize and you understand where this person is coming from will skyrocket your relationship, because you're in adversity and everyone can attach themselves to some type of adversity. But the question is, how do you come out of it? And people always hear, we watch movies, we watch TV, we listen to music, all that stuff. There are certain people that we attach onto because we saw how they made it out of the adversity. So what better situation to be in than be the leader of a team that made it out of the adversity? How much more buy-in can you really have from someone after y'all all made it through that thing?
I love that perspective. I mean, you're talking about like being in the fight with them. I mean, we already see that they're talking about mandatory overtime. Clearly they're doing it because they're probably getting more orders. But again, it's like now you're placing the customer's needs over your people's needs. And again, we have to remember in relationship building, we have to make that one flyer. He said, listen, treat your workers like your customers. You're giving us mandatory overtime, and it's because to serve the needs of the customers. But
Hmm.
what are you going to do to serve the needs of us? Can we just get sick? I
Correct.
mean, if you think about the demands, again, they're asking for, hey, reduction of work pace, hey, greater transparency, hey, can you maybe give us some more health benefits? Or while you got sanitized, we're only asking for 2 weeks of paid leave. Just 2 weeks. We're not asking for a pay raise. I mean, they could have said, listen, we need a pay raise because we are putting ourselves in harm's
Right.
way. But you know what? For these 2 weeks, can you just pay us while you got sanitized, while you make sure that certain things are in place so we feel comfortable? Because again, in building those relationships, you're also building the relationships with those family members that are on the other side. They're feeling comfortable and they can say, baby, I'm so happy that you work for that such a great
Hmm.
organization or a great business. And now the family's even being affected positively because you are building a relationship. You're showing they're caring, your care for them. But again, for me, I'm just like, oh, these demands aren't that crazy, because
They're
again,
not.
yeah, I mean, they're really not. And I think that it's so important that that relationship piece, because again, it's bigger than what we see again from the top up. From
Hmm.
the top perspective, these few warehouses, or maybe it's multitude, but these few warehouses, and now they're affecting an entire structure. And I mean, it took this person so many years. I remember seeing the picture of Amazon, that picture of Jeff Bezos when he was like in his office somewhere, and it was like
Hmm.
a makeshift Amazon, like on like a cardboard
Yeah.
piece of paper. And now look at where you've got went from being having those humble beginnings, and now it's just something as simple as, hey, how about just close it down, sanitize it, give us this 2 weeks of pay. Be transparency is basically communicate with us more, let
Hmm.
us know what's going on. Let's do a reduction in work pace so we can take time and wash our hands and
Hmm.
sanitizer, just take a break. But these improve safety measures. I mean, these simple, simple, simple things, and just going to the negotiation table and having those conversations. But again, building those relationships are so, so important because it's going to build trust, because you're communicating, you're letting them know what's going on. And not only that, the trickle down effect is so much better because now you don't have to worry about things like this. You have lawmakers that are asking questions. You have
Hmm.
so many more people involved now because there's a lack of transparency, just because we can't get 2 weeks of paid leave. So, again, ask yourself, what can you start doing as a leader to make sure that you're building relationships? What are you doing to make sure you're engaging and you're connecting with those people in the front end, in the middle, at the end, and you're consistently, like Corey talked about, going down to the warehouse and checking on everyone. Hey, Bob, getting to know people, asking them those questions. What was that show that used to come on, Undercover Boss? Oh
Hmm.
my goodness, I love that show, because what you will see at the end is a lot of people at this high level, the CEOs, the CFOs, they didn't even realize what was happening, in the field with their team members. And now they've gone and they've connected with people who have real stories, real lives. And now they have been transformed as leaders because they're still connected to the people. So let's not get so disconnected, leaders. We get so disconnected as we move up. We get so disconnected from the people that are pushing your mission and vision. So make sure that you are standing in the front lines with them to maintain the relationship. So now let's transition into conflict resolution and how to deal with this conflict that they're dealing with. They're in it right now. it is what it is, but a lot of people are afraid of conflict. A lot of people are uncomfortable with it. And I was one of those people. I used to be so afraid of conflict. Why? Because I thought about the negative. I thought about no one will like me. I thought about all the negatives about it instead of the positives. So let's talk about that a bit, Corey. Let's talk about conflict resolution and the importance of having those hard conversations for the betterment of the employee, the customers, and for the entire organization.
Yeah, and so just before we even get into that, it's a great segue. And what I was going to piggyback on what you just said was, getting into it and realizing and touching the associate, the team member, right? Because you talked about undercover boss. The greatest feeling that I get on undercover boss is because they see what happens or they get to know what happens outside of the workplace, right? And so you see all these people and they have, hey, I'm gonna set up a scholarship fund for you, and hey, I'm gonna help you with your rent, or hey, I bought a car because I know you have to walk 15 miles to work every day or something like that. So you understand what goes on outside of that, right? And when it comes to like conflict resolution, that is key because I need to know what conflict is going outside of this building so I can have a deeper conversation about the conflict inside of the building, right? So let's start with the outside first, right? So there are people that walk to work. There's people who don't have transportation. There's people who have to find a ride to work every single morning. There are people who are going through some things, whether it's with their family, whether it's with health related stuff. You might have an illness or whatnot. You have something going on outside of the house to where you got to wake up every single day and really push yourself to even get to the building. And so then you get to the building, and then all of a sudden you're like orders, orders, orders. And if you think about yourself as a leader, we're just approaching the situation. It's not you that I'm trying to get on about it. It's not you per se. I have a goal and I have a mission that I'm trying to drive, right? And so when we have these conversations and we're almost delegating the task, or we're giving the directives or whatnot, when you're having these tough conversations that maybe your performance has dropped during the coronavirus time, right? And I'm having a conversation with you, I have to understand where you're coming from first. So I might be saying, it looks like your performance is dipped, it looks like your productivity's dipped. What's going on, what's happening? You need to grab X amount of packages every minute or every hour or something like that. But lo and behold, what you haven't realized is that this person's wife might have just gotten sick and it's on their mind, or they came to work and they might have coughed, just and was like, oh, now I'm in a state of hysteria because I'm like, oh, am I going to bring this back to my family? Like, did I catch it from this location? Did I, where did this come from? Maybe my body feels fatigued right now, but it's really because I've been working overtime. And if anybody pays attention to health, you know that if your body becomes tired, your immune system then falls. So it's like a double whammy for you, kind of. You're fatigued, and that's a symptom of the virus, but you're also exposed to it. So am I going to catch it? And so just even the smallest directive of, hey, what's going on with your productivity? Or hey, you showed up 2 minutes late today, or hey, I saw you printing paper over there, for your daughters, whatever, that you need to sign them up for next week or whatever. And you're having some type of difficult conversation, in whatever form that may be. Where is this person coming from, and how do I tie that into the empathy piece, right? And so obviously as leaders, there's not times where we can just fall to our knees and say, you know what, I fully understand your situation. I'm going to give you a pass. It doesn't matter. Let's try again tomorrow. No, there's times where we have to step in and say, this just is what it is. But you got to have the heart behind it. You got to have the people piece to say, I understand where you're coming from. I'm going to help you get there though. Like, I've acknowledged it, but I'm going to help you get there. And so those conflict resolution conversations, and like those really tough conversations you have, if you come from a space of, yes, this is what I need to be done, this is what hasn't been done, or this is what the new shift is, or the new focus is, and you might disagree with that, but I'm in it with you. And I think that if we can continue to drive home, I am in this thing with you, your people, again, that's connection, that's engagement, that's empowerment. Your people will want to just gush because they're like, he's in the thing with me. So it's not like he's standing far away saying this is just what it is. And you're from your home and stuff like that. And you're just telling me what to do. No, I'm in this thing with you. And you can even do that from home too. Like I empathize with you and I understand where you're coming from outside of work. so I can understand how to have that conversation inside of work.
I love that, and you highlighted something that I love because a lot of these leadership skills and tools that we're giving you can be applicable at home too because we're leading at home as well. So, hey, there might be needs of your family. There might be a breakdown. They might go on strike, but their strike might be different. It might be we're not talking to you anymore, or your daughter or your son is going to be locked up in their room for the rest of the day because they don't feel like you're communicating effectively.
Hmm.
They're on strike and they probably have a list of needs that they want as well that you have to kind of break down the walls and find out, okay, what do you need from me? I was on a call earlier and it was, moms and they were talking about, what they're doing during the season. And some of them talked about, hey, we have people that have different behavior styles or we have people that have different needs. So we give each child a day and say, hey, what do you want to do today? What you want to work on? And allow them to get their pieces of time, or it might be a cooking, it might be movie day. Like my daughter, she wants to spend time and watch a family movie while I do her hair. Sure, I have to dedicate time to them too. They are my team members in a way, but they're my
Hmm.
children. So the same tools that you're learning, you can use it to apply when leading at home as well. And just like you said, where is it coming from? It's really interesting how we have, it says mandatory overtime. So one of the pieces that they talked about in this piece about the Amazon strike was one of the person that I guess kicked it off, Chris Smalls. That's his name, correct? Chris Smalls, I believe was his
Hmm.
name. And he talked about how he had been working for Amazon for 5 years. He was the assistant manager. So he had moved up. Clearly, they saw some skills and talents in him, and he's been able to move up the chain. But when this breakdown happened, just like that, he decided to say, hey, I'm going to bring this up. I'm going to talk about some of the things that I'm seeing, the issues. And then he eventually got fired. And it was like, you have somebody that had dedicated 5 years at your company that ended in a moment because they spoke
Hmm.
up. They talked about the issues that you just let go. And yes, I'm sure there's different sides of the argument, and we're not picking on Amazon. But again, this is just an example of the importance of building the relationships, knowing your people, engaging with them, because someone that's been dedicated for 5 years that you felt had enough skill and had enough, they just stood out and you made them assistant manager, you can cut off that quickly. Are you having those conversations and say, how can we resolve this? I feel like if they would have had a conversation with him, he was already in there. He wasn't, like you've been saying, no one is saying I quit. Everybody still wants to work there. They're just asking for some changes and some shifts to happen and some issues to be addressed. So if you would have sat down, had a conversation with somebody that's dedicated, they're seeing it from the other side. He's seeing the people that are sick. He's seeing how it's affecting other team members. Let's sit him down and say, hey, you know what? I think you might be the person to take a lead in this initiative to collect the data and the information we need from the people and our team members in this warehouse to find out what their needs are, and let's address it together. But
Hmm.
instead, he got cut loose, and now his purpose probably changed because now he's pushing and he's leading really this revolution that might be happening with, hey, requesting our needs and our wants. So, and hopefully Amazon would eventually oblige and make some adjustments and go to the negotiation table. But again, that's why it's so important to stay engaged and build those relationships, because someone that has dedicated that much time, was it really at the point where they just get cut off like that? Somebody that has dedicated all that time to push your mission and vision, can you just cut them off like that? So make sure that you're taking time and finding out, where is it coming from? Why did that productivity change? What happened? Ask those questions so you can tap into that empathy and really try to, again, resolve that conflict effectively, because now you're getting their understanding, you're getting their perspective. Because a lot of times we tend to judge people from the outside, from the externals. I even talk about in the A+ assessment that I do. Like sometimes we look at people from the external aspect, but what's happening internally? What is really the background? What is the thing that you value more that I need to get an understanding? What are those things that I need to know behind internally for me to understand your perspective? So it's so important, like you said, to have that empathy. But in order to get that empathy, allow that person to give their input, find out why their productivity changed, find out why they're nervous. Because again, these people have lives, they have families back home that are asking them every day, do you really have to do this? Do you really have to be on the front line? Do you really have to do this? And now to come home and say, baby, even though I dedicated all these years and time to this organization, they let me go just like that.
Yeah,
Just like
and let me
that.
say this. Let me say this. Don't be
Yeah.
mad when a leader leads. So we push this agenda and we develop leaders and we say push my mission, push my vision, but I got to give you the tools to be able to do that, right? the empathizing and the pulling on heartstrings and the understanding and the empowering and the rah rah and the engagement, you know, keeping exciting in the work. Like we teach you all of these things to put in your leadership tool bag, I guess you can say. Don't be mad when a leader leaves. And so what you say his name was Chris Smalls, right? And so he said that this is the issue with my associate. And like you said, they could have easily turned that into, hey, if he's gonna speak out, man, that might be the guy that we need to take this company to the next level. So let's empower him because clearly he's engaged already. Let's empower and excite him to then go do something and get on the front lines, which is clearly what he's doing. Let's find out what the needs of our associates are. What if he reached out to all the offices himself and I gave you a project to say how do I gather that data easily, and then let's see what the trend is. And then from the high up, you want to look at the big data is what I call it. What's the data that I can use? So don't be mad when a leader leaves and then you take out and you cut him off after 5 years. 5 years nowadays, that's a very long time in a company. So you just lost somebody that's very tenured. And I want you to think as leaders, what are you doing that may push your own team members, your own managers, your own supervisors in that direction when you speak out and you say, I want you to, and this is the typical term that I hear, you have to run it like it's a business. Like this is your business. This is your team. You run it like a business. So think about what you would want to put in your business. Don't be mad once the leader starts to lead. And then it might not align with the exact thing that you want to happen, but just think about what he's saying. My people are having these concerns. I have these concerns, which aren't really that extraordinary of a concern, right? So your leader is now leading. Take it. Hey, we have to start looking at things as leaders and turning them to the positive. Rather, hey, oh, he might have gone to a news outlet about it. What if I turn this to a great PR opportunity to say, I took Chris, because Chris was his name, right? I took Chris and then put him in a position that in this season, during the quarantine times, that he took a leadership role above and beyond what he did. And then all of a sudden now I'm looking at his exposure and maybe giving him to some type of incentive to say, because you did this for my company and because you collaborated and you got with all these offices and figured out what it was, you're on my radar now because I know you're for the people. I know you're for the company. And but what it turns out to, and a lot of times as leaders, once we see those leaders leading and it might not necessarily have come off the way that we thought it should have come off, we say, no, you got to go. It's not working out. I've shut down to your ideas. I've shut down to your thought process, instead of taking one step back and saying, okay, how do I pivot from here? What's the best outcome to it? And the best outcome would have been to say, you've already gone to the news outlet. What if they interview Chris again and say, since he's gone to the news outlet, he's taken a position of this, right? He's taken a higher position. We've given him a project for the associates to voice their concerns, the team members to voice their concerns, and we've actually dealt with those concerns. How great of a company would you sound now?
Oh, that's so good to take I won't say a negative, but I love that. Like, empower your leaders. I love that. Like, don't be mad when a leader leaves because that's who he was. He was a leader. People were comfortable enough to go to Chris. They were comfortable enough to voice their concerns.
Hmm.
And he felt like as a leader, he has a voice. So even depending on, are you a first tier leader? Are you a mid tier leader? Are you a CEO? You need to make sure that your leaders feel like their voice is empowered because that's why you put them in the roles. You should be putting them in a role and also getting feedback because again, those first and mid-tier leaders that are working in the midst of all of that that's going on in the field, they're the ones who you really need to connect with. They
Hmm.
see the struggles. They have the conversation with your team members. They know exactly what's going on. They know the pulse of the organization. So they're so much more valuable. I won't even say more, but they might be because they have the
Yeah.
insight, they have the information. And if you have an effective one, that can help you say, hey, this is the issue, these are the problems, hey, let's just, this is how we can address it. That's going to benefit you so much more. And I love that, because the interesting part is, although Chris was fired, his leadership skills are now being used on the outside.
Hmm.
He's still being a leader, he's still addressing the issue. Now he's talking to lawmakers, they're working with him to figure all this out. He's still leading, but now he's on the other side. And now
Hmm.
it seems like his leadership skills is for the other team. And unfortunately, it's probably for the betterment of Amazon and for the people, if anything, the people that are still there. That's probably pushing him, and that's why he was addressing this issue, not because for his own selfish reasons. It's also because of the people that he cared about, the people that he worked for, and I think that's so important. So when you said don't be mad when leaders lead, again, if you have somebody that's as valuable as Chris was, that cared about not only his people, but also the benefit, how this is going to benefit the warehouse and the organization. You should not have cut him off. You should have empowered him, allowed him to express themselves. Yeah, I mean, who knows? Maybe you might have been like, we could have handled this a little differently, but also ask yourself, why did he have to go to the news? Was there some communication breakdowns within the brick and mortar where he felt like nobody was listening to me, so I had to take it a step further? So again, it's, you really want to make sure you start dialing it back as a top tier leader and finding out,
Hmm.
why was there a breakdown. And as we're talking about communication, that's the thing we're going to segue into, the importance of communication, because one of the concerns that a lot of these team members said was they wanted more transparency. To me, that's simple. They just wanted to know what's going on, what your plan is, especially if you think about, again, I keep talking about what I call the A plus assessment. You have a group of people who are considered what they call S's. They're big about understanding change, knowing what's different. They want to know why there's change. Why is there all of a sudden mandatory overtime? Why all of a sudden are we making all these changes? I don't understand what's going on. So you have a group of people that work for you that aren't just results driven, that aren't just all about, okay, everybody's here. And action, I'm glad I'm here with everyone. They're people who really need to understand why you're doing this, if it's going to benefit me, how is it going to benefit our family, instead of having those conversations me and Corey were talking about earlier, where leaders will come in and say, here's the change, deuces, have a good day, or here's the change, do you have any questions? And he was sharing about an experience he's had in the past, but here's the change, but there hasn't been any, oh, do you have any questions? And people are giving questions. Okay, we'll take that back and get back to you. But you asked us, do we have any questions? But you can't answer them. So we have to
Hmm.
remember that with different people that we work with, they might not be comfortable with change. They might have questions. And those are the things you want to vet ahead of time to prepare, because you're going to have people ask, why is it mandatory overtime? Why are we working later? Why can't we get it? They're going to have those why questions, and you need to have that level of communication and transparency to be able to support those group of people, so they can again have that trust, because everybody builds trust differently. But are you making
Hmm.
sure that you're communicating effectively? And I call it customizing your language, by making sure that you're talking to each individual effectively. And that's why it's important to connect with myself, connect with Corey, connect with these leaders out here who can help you get your communication and your engagement to the next level, because there might be some key pieces that you're missing. And once you get those intact, your communication game goes to a whole nother level. And now people trust you just as more. So, what are your feelings about communication and how that ties in with employee engagement, and why you think it's so important to have transparency, but also, I always talk about the ugly truth. When is it not time to, not say not time, but when is it, maybe this information I can't break down and explain to you why we're doing it? Is there ever a time as a leader we have to say, we can't tell you that? But how do you flip it and still have a level of transparency with your people?
Yeah, so I think that you have to be able to identify the fluidity of the situation, right? So first and foremost, the transparency should always be there to an extent, right? And so by that, you want to tell your people what's coming down the pipeline. You want to tell your people, hey, this particular change may happen, right? Um, and then I guess let's start from the top tier leader, right? So I'm talking about my C-suite people, maybe like some type of officer, right? And so they come down, they say, hey, I'm trying to develop this process or procedure, or this is a change that's happening to the company. And then they are allowing that trickle down effect to be able to be spoken to. So from the top, you should be able to answer those questions, right? If we're going to change a process or procedure, what's the benefit to it? What's in it for me as the associate? what's the overall picture because of the company? Like, what is this going to affect, rather than us just saying, hey, that's that change. All right, I'm out. And then you got a SpongeBob meme smacked on the front of your desk or whatnot. Um, but what is it, and how does it enact in our everyday life now, right? And so we were talking about the situation earlier where um, people, there's a process that needed to be drawn out, or to be carried out, and they say, okay, so what questions do you guys have about this process going on? And so we were like, yeah, so how does it affect this, or does that mean we're going to do this, or is this going to happen? And they were like, I don't have an answer right now. I don't have an answer right now. Oh, I'll put that on the table and we'll get back to you, right? So don't even ask the question if you don't have the answers, right? So as the top tier leaders, make sure that you have those answers first. And it's almost kind of a SWOT analysis ish when you want to speak on those terms, right? And what are the downfalls? What are the benefits to it? What are the questions that people are going to have? Because you're almost carrying out another, especially depending on how big your company is, you're carrying out a mini company within that company, because some of these processes and procedures have to be drawn out over 40,000 employees, depending on how big you are, right? So how, are you able to answer the questions? Don't just talk the talk, walk the walk. Answer the questions for the people, right? And then, which one of the things that's pivotal, make sure that your team that's carrying it out has their questions met, because what will happen is confusion, and now your leaders are like, well, sure, I guess that's what's going to happen. Or you get a bunch of I don't knows. Like, if you carry out a process and you come up to me and say, hey, does that mean that I'm going to be working less hours? And my answer is, I don't know. um how does that associate feel at that point? Does that, oh boy, I might have much, my paycheck might get cut right now, right? And it's not that it's not that it will get cut. It's that I didn't have an answer, so you don't know where their head is going. You don't know what that person's mindset is now. So make sure you hash out every single question, that, and maybe you might not have the answers, right, but have the majority of the outline ready for people and transparent down the line. Now, when we have certain things, and I'll bring you back to the situation where we were starting to work from home, right? My team knew this is what's coming down the pipeline. We're adults, we can figure this out. And I'm prefacing everything with, this is subject to change, but I'm just letting you know right now. So don't get too excited. Now let's talk about certain situations where I can't say anything. And I have a current situation right now that I can't say anything, right? Because it's going to cause questions, it's going to cause panic, it's going to cause um, distress, for I guess the lack of a bigger word for that, right? But I know that I've identified that, although the typical management answer is don't tell anybody this process is coming down the line, right? You have to be able to identify, because of this process change or because of this thing that's going to change, there will be panic that's going to happen. And so I don't need to talk about that right now. I don't need to share that with anybody right now, right? Because all it's going to do is create a sense of disconnect, a sense of what is about to happen, and it's question marks will pop around your head, and I can't answer them at all at this point, because I'm kind of sort of left in the dark. I know what the big picture looks like, but I don't know anything outside of that. So those are the type of things where you have to say as a leader, I, I'm I'm holding it to my chest to the grave until I actually get more answers, because I'm going to put then trust in my upper management team, the leaders above me, the person who I report to be able to give me that information once it's time. And then also reaching out to people to understand, what concerns do my peers have? What concerns would the associate have? Maybe you pick their brain sometimes. Hey, how y'all feel about this department? Hey, how you feel about this change? Like this, what if we had to do this one day or something, right? And it's just you poking and prodding and to see into that, to where you can bring that to whoever your superiors are. So maybe they can address that question up front, rather than having to table it and come back with an answer later on. Because we all get busy, and that answer might come 3 weeks down the line. We're full fledged doing the thing now, right? So hold it to your chest. You got to be able to identify those things. But the biggest differentiator in it is, can you answer some of those questions outright and preface it with, this is where we're going? Or if you tell people this, are you going to be like, I have no clue, I'm just letting y'all know? You're going to create more panic than anything when it comes to stuff like that. So be able to decipher between the two, right? And transparency is the biggest key. So when you push that on down to them, get the buy-in from people too. So as you're communicating these decisions, as I'm talking through it, what concerns do you have about it? Like, what do you think we should be able to do in this situation? And that way, if you're going to tell me that you're going to table it, maybe you table my solution and then bring it up and say, you know what, he had a really good idea about this thing. Maybe we need to add that into that. Or she had a really good idea about such and such. Maybe I need to add it into it. So the communication is kind of fluid when it comes to that. But I think the biggest key is deciphering, can I answer any questions about it? And can I preface it with anything? If I can, maybe I do need to start flowing that down the line. If I can't, I don't need to talk about this at all, because you're going to have a team of disarray and they're not going to understand exactly what's going on.
That's a great perspective, like to kind of know when to share the information. And I mean, just like you said, you need to hold on to it because you have to vet. Okay, if I bring this down and say, hey guys, we're having mandatory overtime. Mandatory. Again, the key word is mandatory. Not you have a choice, it's mandatory, right? What questions are going to follow
Hmm.
because you say this is how it's going to be? What concerns are they going to have? Have you guys brainstormed, has as a leadership team, have you brainstormed that? And also remember, we're developing future leaders as well, so there should be someone within that warehouse, within your team that you're developing. So it's kind of maybe empowering them. Okay guys, and having that trust in them and saying, okay, maybe it's three of you all. Okay, this is about to go down, and I'm trusting you guys with
Hmm.
this information. And now you're having that dialogue with those maybe one or two other people that you're developing to be the next leader, and they're probably giving you, okay, these are they might have questions, and now might be like, okay,
Hmm.
well, I know Sue's going to have this question because she's a single parent and she's not might not have any babysitters available between this hour. So and so is has medical appointments between this time, so maybe how is this going to affect this? Or so and so can only work the night shift. So how is this going to affect someone that can only work the night shift?
Hmm.
So are you developing other leaders? Because maybe even like I said, if you're a first tier leader, you might say, okay, I'm going to take, or that mid tier leader takes all their first tier leaders and say, okay, guys, we need to come up with a frequently asked questions list. So when we do put this information out there, we can make sure we can answer all of them effectively. And I loved how you said, make sure you have the backing of that top tier leadership. You want to make sure, as a first or mid tier leader, that you also know that you have that backing, because I've been in situations where, as the leader, you're like, this is how it's going to be, but you don't have any backup. You don't
Hmm.
have backup. You might be getting cussed out by the customers, and you're like, we've got cussed out by the same customer for the past week. Is there any way we can address it? And they're just like, well, they're the customer. It is what it is. You want to make sure you have backup
Hmm.
by that top tier leadership. So making sure that you have that support, and you have to wonder if someone like Chris had that top level support. And now he started feeling like, well, I'm in this leadership role, I don't even have the support up here, so what else, who else is going to listen to me, who else is going to give me a voice? So make sure you're empowering other leaders, getting that table of individuals who can say, okay, these are my questions, these might be the questions of everyone else, so let's vet that, let's go through it, let's have the questions ready. Also empower those other leaders who work with them day to day, have them answer the questions and
Hmm.
have them talk too, because again, those first tier leaders are the ones that they're interacting with. So now you're empowering them, you're teaching them conflict resolution skills, communication skills, and you're also making sure, like I said, everyone has clear direction. So again, remember, just like you said, hold on to the information if you don't have the answer, but also ask what issues might come up, what questions might come up, so we can be able to communicate
Hmm.
effectively, so we don't leave it chaotic. So we don't just leave it with this basic information and now everybody's like, I don't even, okay, he said mandatory overtime. Me as a single parent, the first thing I'm going to think about, am I going to need to get a babysitter? Could I make an adjustment? I know I'll have all kinds of questions going on in my head because again, everyone's personal lives or their situation is different. So I love the fact that you're saying, listen, I'm gonna hold on to it until I have the data
Hmm.
and the information so I can answer those questions. But also, if you can't answer it, follow up later. Again, empower those first or mid-tier leaders and say, okay, guys, here's your assignment. We had 50 questions. I need you guys to come up with the answers, and then we're going to meet a week from now or 5 days from now, figure out which ones are pressing, because we might need to meet up in the next 3 days so we can have the
Hmm.
pressing questions answered. Now, okay, now that we have the pressing ones answered, now let's meet again in a week, and now we can address all of them. So create those systems and say, this is how we're going to follow up. This is how we're going to make sure we communicate, and then provide that transparency with a cap, because again, there might be certain things you can't share, or people that
Yeah.
might just, you just can't share that information. So I love that. Go through that process, hold the information, make sure you have those frequently asked questions, empower other leaders, and make sure that you're doing your part to make sure the data and the information goes out so everyone feels comfortable and they're getting that level of transparency. So we talked about a lot today. And just to do like a quick recap, we talked about the importance of relationships, the importance of having that connection, that relationship, making sure that you're connecting with people early on and building that trust early on. Because again, your effective relationship with them will also trickle down to their family members and all the other people behind them. And even, like I said, if your first tier leader has a good relationship with you, now they feel like they have a voice. We talked about the engagement. Corey hit us with so many nuggets about the importance of engagement, getting people involved and how you can motivate them, inspire them. We talked about conflict resolution and getting that, tapping into that empathy by hearing the voices and allowing people to have their voices heard, making sure you are communicating effectively. Like all of these play into each other, right?
Hmm.
Because if your communication's right, you can build effective relationship. If your communication is effective, you can build that employee or your team engagement. If your communication is effective, conflict resolution is it should be a little bit more fluid, a little bit more easier. So communication is pretty much like the hub of all of these. And just imagine what communication could have done to support and really feel the Amazon team members felt like they were supported, and then also communicate, but also take action on the other end of this. So what do you have as last words? Like what is your last few perspectives on these areas of relationship, engagement, conflict resolution, with the hub being communication that you can give to the people, to kind of close out and have something they can think about as they're transitioning throughout the rest of the weeks.
Yeah, so I wanna start out with saying I don't want anybody leaving the conversation we're having right now thinking because people want transparency, therefore be transparent. Understand that everything that you're doing, and this is the biggest point I want you to get from it though. So y'all write this down at home. If you're on the Zoom right now, write it down. You're either building or breaking your relationship in any interaction that you have. So just being transparent and someone saying I want you to be transparent can build or break your relationship with that person and the engagement, right? So we talked about how to decipher between the two, but understand that certain times being transparent for the sake of being transparent can really tear your relationship down, because the associate or the team member looks at you as the person that they need to go to, and they look at you as the company, so to speak. Because when people, and we talked about this earlier, when people leave jobs, it's not the company, it's you. But what's going to come out their mouth when they're at the Thanksgiving table, or they're at the Sunday gathering table, or the party they're having on Friday after work or whatnot, when they say your name, their friends and family, they're not going to say this company was bad because of James. They're going to say, yeah, James was bad. I can't believe that company did this. So the company will be the forefront to that. So understand that everything that you do is either building or breaking down your relationship, right? Because every interaction you have, a question you may answer, your demeanor when you answer that question, the transparency in you answering that question can either build it. And you talked about you being a parent, right? If I'm so transparent to tell you that, hey, look, this is what's going to be. We're going to work mandatory overtime. You may go home, and I have no answers for it. You may go home every single day from then and stress and wonder, what is my life going to look like, because I have to work mandatory overtime. What's going to happen to my kids? Can I find somebody? Am I in a job where I even make enough money to be able to find somebody that's extra, or is this mandatory overtime literally going to be paying for this daycare, right? What is that going to look like? And because I was transparent and I thought that it was going to be to the benefit of myself, I actually kind of tore our relationship down because you're coming in stressed every day. And you may still enjoy me as a person, you may still respect me and want to work for me, but at the same time, I caused a level of distress in your life. And you may say, yeah, I probably would have been better off not knowing that because I don't have any answers for you. So just understand that everything that you're doing is building or breaking your relationship down. And it can be such a small thing that you can do. I'll tell y'all a story real quick before we end this thing. And there's actually an employee that I work with, and every single day that I come to the building, I don't know if y'all remember, I think it was a cartoon or a show on Nickelodeon or something like that. And he'll be like, "All right, y'all, Corey in the house," and everybody starts clapping. And it's just a small thing that I'm like, hey, and I do like the presidential wave sometimes. I come in and I be like, all right, I'm in the house. But you can tell that associate, when I step into the building, he's like, oh, this is time for me to engage. This is some excitement for me for the day or whatever, right? It's important for him. Which I love that he does it, because everybody else around him is like, hey, yeah, he's in the house, and they start clapping, right? But you can also turn that situation into being bad, understanding your employees, because as I am Corey's in the house person, people start clapping, and I'm like, yeah, I'm in the house. You can do that with an associate who doesn't like that type of interaction, and then I might say, hey, Aisha in the house, and she's like, please stop bringing attention to myself. So I'm either building or breaking the relationship down, right? And understanding your person and where we talked about what's happening outside of work, what happens inside the building, but also understanding what happens inside of them as a person, for you to truly understand what engages, excites, and empowers them. So you're either building or breaking the relationship down in every single thing that you do. That's all I got for y'all.
Love it, love it. And and like Corey said, like ultimately, again, building or breaking the relationship, but realize as leaders, we're still going to have people who leave a company and say, you know what, it was this company. They're going to lead with
Hmm.
the name. But I also wrote down, it's important. It's like, but the people that are still there will either support the lie or they'll deter the lie, right?
Hmm.
Or deter, I won't even call it a lie, because everybody's experiences within an organization or a business or wherever they are, that's their experience. But either your people are going to support it, just like I said, Chris Smalls, it could have just been him. He put it out there. But
Hmm.
when people started to strike, when people actually went out there, was like, no, this is what's going on, they supported it. So now it's just like, oh, maybe, because initially when these things come out, people are always hesitant. Like, do we really believe this person? Do we believe
Hmm.
them or them? But what happened
But
is that a
how
lot of
much
people
of a lie
supported
is
it.
it if the attorney general gets involved, though?
Exactly. Now you have all these people that are striking. You have all these people now going live. And it may be Chris's voice empowered other people, because I want to empower other team members. I mean, the reality as a leader, I have to be able to tell my team members, you need to be able to have a voice as well. So one person speaking up, now everybody's like, oh, he spoke up. You know what? I'm going to speak up too. And now they feel comfortable, because a lot of times it's your voice that amplifies other people's voices. And now they're like, you know what? I'm going to speak up too. But they're either going to support it or deter it. So make sure that,
Hmm.
yes, it's going to happen. People are going to say it was you. They're going to say it was the company. They're going to talk down on it. But ultimately, are your actions, are your behaviors engaging? Are you communicating? Are you having that transparency? Are you building those relationships? Is your communication effective? So ultimately, if someone does go out there and say, and they're like, okay, I had this experience, are you going to trust and believe that ultimately the people of the team, they're going to deter it? Or are they ultimately going to support it because you didn't take the time, you didn't take the initiative to make sure that you made communication, relationships, engagement, and conflict resolution as one of the things you want to become effective in? So make sure that you're taking time and investing and learning these skills and these tools, because as we were talking earlier, there are studies that show like millennials, they're pretty much the hub of the workforce, but they're looking for professional development. They're looking for training. They're looking for opportunities for their leadership skills to be developed. But are you allocating a budget? Are you allocating time and energy into building those programs, recognition and communication, like just learning those skills? And that's why it's important that you bring and you support those individuals by having those tools available to you. So just make sure that you connect with myself, Corey, if you want to learn more about engagement, communication, and utilizing these assessments and these tools that we have available to take your business or your brand and your leadership skills to the next level, reach out, because again, this is what the data shows. Your people want it. They want to become effective. They want to learn more. And as a leader, we need to be able to give it to them. But again, sometimes you might have to just get people on the outside to come in and really help you build those skills. So make sure you connect with us. Make sure you get with us, Corey, to let them know where they can reach you if they need to connect with you and get more information.
Yeah, so y'all can reach me at CoreySigu.com. You can follow me on Instagram, Corey at Corey Sigu. Follow me on Facebook, Corey Sigu. But reach me, y'all reach out to me, CoreySigu.com. We can talk about developing yourself. We can talk about how to what I've been on lately, how to sing your song as a leader, right? And that will play into your engagement. So y'all check me out. Shoot me an email. Um, yeah,
Awesome. And you guys always know, hit me up info@aishathomas.org. Go to my website so we can give you some more tools. We're about to hop off this live. We have a leader on the line and we want to make sure we answer their questions, their concerns, help them with whatever areas they need support in. So of course, make sure for this next time, please sign up, get on this call, get the training and the skills that you need, but then we can also sit with you one-on-one and give you the tools and equip you and empower you with the information you need to take your business on another level. But this is going to be a private chat. We don't need you all up in his business. So we're going to go offline, and thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you tune in again. We're going to, I'm going to hit Corey up. We're going to have to do this more often,
yeah.
so we can give you these tools and these tricks. But make sure you connect with us, aishathomas.org, Corey Sigu. I said it right.
There we go.
.com.
There we go.
I'm messing up his
Corey in
name,
the
y'all.
house.
Yes, Corey in the house. Follow me on Miss Aisha Speaks. And again, thank you guys for tuning in. And I hope you guys will hop on next time. Have a great day.